The Rotten State, an original short story by Jared I. McGee. Long ago, Florida was once known as the Sunshine State. For obvious reasons, of course. Sun, beaches, fun, and boatloads upon boatloads of citrus fruit. Lemons, limes, grapefruit, you name it. Fruit was a staple of the Floridian economy and identity. In particular, though, oranges were their claim to fame. Pulp, no pulp, from concentrate, fresh squeezed. If it had an orange or its juice in it, the people of the United States of America thought Florida when they thought of the tangy little spheres. Moreover, what with the inherent vitamin C in oranges, Florida became a shining beacon for conversations regarding immunity-boosting effects of oranges. When Airborne, Emergen-C, and other similar brands began to spring up left and right, what was their first flavor? That's right, orange. Often followed quickly by tangerine, nectarine, and so forth, but the first was always orange, the flavor being demonstrative of feeling better in the U.S. consciousness at the time. Amid all the spring breakers, parrot heads, snowbirds, Disney freaks, and would-be witches and wizards that were Florida, colds were not long for this world. That all changed on March 17, 2056. Farmer named Roger J. Duderton Jr. went to check on his oranges on what was a painfully regular morning in an utterly mundane Florida town on a completely ordinary farm. Duderton happened to have a few prickles in his throat and the initial cranial tightness of a headache. He planned on snagging a couple oranges right from one of his trees and putting a stop to that damned cold before it got started. That's one of the miracles of oranges, after all. Needless to say, Duderton was utterly aghast at what he found hanging from his trees. Rather than the vibrant, all but neon, orange of the oranges greeting him, almost smiling from the tree's branches, he was met with what looked like lumps of coal hanging to the boughs of his beloved plants.
Surely it's just the one tree,
he thought, as he quickly tromped the couple feet to the next tree in the row. Shriveled, hard, black rocks hung where the fruit should be. On that tree. On the next. And the next. And the next. Duderton called his migrant workers that he'd hired for the season out into the fields. They took out the grids they used to ensure that all the trees got the same attention in regards to pruning, harvesting, spraying, and all other forms of care. Methodically and with a growing sense of dread, he and the 10 Hispanic men of varying nationalities that he'd paid in cash and lunch, half of the minimum wage, and some sandwiches on the side were the going rate, spread out and helped him check every tree that made up the Duderton's livelihood. Grid square by grid square, they searched, and with each passing quarter acre, half acre, full acre, they found more and more of those rock-like black abominations that just should not be. Of course, Duderton and his workers could not have known that this was just the beginning. Farm after farm would discover over the next weeks and months that their oranges also turned black and hard and inedible. Rather quickly, the late-night cycle picked up the story and Florida was quickly relabeled the Rotten State. Quite the departure from its previous nickname indeed. The humor of the situation wouldn't last very long, though. Oranges went first, then nectarines and limes and lemons. Of course, it was just Florida in the beginning. The creeping death would hop to Georgia, and then continue westward until it fed on the fruits of California and Mexico. Within 11 months, oranges were totally extinct in the Western Hemisphere. The remainder of the citrus fruits were close behind. The explanations for how and why this massive dying off was occurring abounded, as always. Overproduction of GMOs had weakened the plant's ability to mutate and avoid utter extinction. God was angry with Florida, or the U.S., or someone, so he brought down an Old Testament plague to demonstrate his wrath. Overplanting for far too many years, ruining the soil. The explanations were varied and all but infinite. The humor did crop back up, though, as laughing was just about the only thing you can do in that sort of situation. And now, plants just keep on dying out. There's more blight than green anymore. As a result, a great many animal populations are declining with some alarming rapidity. Florida is still thought of as ground zero. Some even blame the poor people that happened to be living there when all this started. It's black as night throughout that once verdant state. But the joke about the rotten state has stopped making its rounds a while back. Doesn't seem all that funny now that the state of everything is rotten. The chief bit of humor that has survived is that everyone has a damn cold anymore. No more orange juice and all. Funny, right? Thank you for listening to The Rotten State. The backing track for this story is an original composition written and performed by David Ezell. The third piece Mr. Ezell has written specifically and exclusively for a prose story. David Ezell is a devoted father, a devoted creator, a devoted friend, and a devoted defender of the Republic, not to mention an extremely talented musician. As I have noted before, long ago in our heyday, he and I used to make some pretty good music together. If you'd like to check that old music out, head on over to prosepodcast.com and check out the About page. Mr. Ezell is currently working for podcasts and various other media to create and edit audio with his company, Soundproof Editing. If you have any digital audio needs, contact him via email at soundproofaudioediting@gmail.com. Also, keep your eyes peeled, ears sharp, and be on the ready for even more music from Mr. Ezell sooner than later. Next up, let's try to relive our youth with the once and former and future king. Shall we?